I'm Joey.T.Cartoon.P and you're watching the Cartoon Palooza. I don't think there's anything more nostalgic than this music video right here. Oh yeah, we're watching the Rugrats movie too. I may as well address that I was the biggest fan of the Rugrats, probably as much as I was with Pokemon. Before Avatar and SpongeBob, Rugrats was my favorite Nicktoon. Hell, even before I had cable, I was watching the show on this badass orange VHS tapes. It was really something fun about babies treating normal day occurrences to large over-the-top scenarios. If anything, it made growing up in the late 90s and early 2000s fun. Yeah, I guess that technically doesn't make me a 90s kid. It had a memorable cast of characters, including possibly the greatest villain in Nicktoon's existence. I most likely saw every episode. I had my parents buy me the videos, the sneakers, books, and even that crappy PlayStation game Search for Reptar. Yeah, well, it had Tommy Pickles in it. I didn't know any better. So with the popularity the show garnered, it was enough to get a movie off the ground. And we're not just talking a direct-to-video movie, we're talking a large-screen adaptation. I clearly remember watching the teaser trailer featuring the babies riding a mechanical Reptar into a TV thinking, oh my god, my 6-year-old life is complete. And then I discovered sex, so it was the second greatest thing, I guess. So, does that movie hold up to the quality of the show, or is it as pointless as making Doug's first movie into a theatrical release? Well, let's find out. So before we begin, I want to mention that this movie was co-directed by Igor Kovalyov. And I apologize in advance to my Russian demographic for mispronouncing that name. He's responsible for most of the classy Kuso character designs. It's very distinct with lots of strange proportions, messy lines, and characters with beady eyes. And as it turns out, it also has a career directing some of the most insane Eastern European animations possible. And considering most Eastern animations, that's saying something. Just for contrast, I just want to take clips from this movie with clips from his shorts, put them together, see what happens. Probably nightmares. So our movie begins with the gang. Tommy, Chucky, Phil, and Lil are playing at Dee Dee's baby shower, which can only mean one thing, that my favorite characters are making an appearance.
Nothing better for the little poopala than goat's milk.
Except maybe yak, but you try finding good yak these days.
Boris and Miriam, pretty sure I don't even need to see the rest of this film because that's all I need to see. So while Angelica does, I don't know, any evil stuff she's always doing, she notices that Susie's grabbing more attention, leading to one of the things you see in a Rugrats episode all the time, a musical number. What?
Like a birdie singing in a tree, more like reptiles screaming in your ear.
I have no clue why this movie is a musical. There were rarely any songs sung in the show. Most of the time the lyrics can have their moments.
Man, they cut my cord.
Oh, consider yourself lucky.
Mazel tov. Otherwise, they feel like filler, mostly revolving around the overused joke that babies mispronounce words. That or just rip off other songs. So back to the film, we discover that Angelica's demonic voice is powerful enough to break a pregnant lady's water, and Dee Dee's ready to give birth. They go to the doctor, whose name got me in trouble every time I said it to my mom. But I can say it now because I'm an adult. Lipshits. And we witnessed a movie where the show died for me. The birth of Dill.
Mommy, I want you to meet someone very special. This is your brother Dylan.
Well, okay, the introduction of Dill is probably where the show tanked for me. Yeah, I practically dug the grave when Kimmy was introduced. It was fueled on many of the reasons I couldn't stand Poof from the Fairly Odd Parents. Most of the time, he isn't doing anything, so he feels more like a distraction than a character with personality like the others. The only defining characteristic about him, which is actually more of a complaint the more I think about it, is that he barely speaks. I don't think this has to do with him being a newborn, since it seems implied in this scene that babies are born to talk and communicate. So, is it wrong for me to imply that he's retarded?
What? Look at Tommy. Nobody's likes you.
Hey, I don't need to point it out. The movie's doing it for me. So in a charming scene where Stu talks to Tommy about responsibility, he passes him a family heirloom. And as sweet as it is to see Stu give it to Tommy, it begs to ask the question why something as priceless as an old watch would be passed down to a baby. The best I get from my dad is a pat on my back when I graduate college. Then again, I don't question the logic of a man who builds a functional plane for toddlers. Speaking of which, a Power Wheels version of Reptar that Stu builds takes the gang through hell and back with a simple push. I don't think this thing has an engine and it rides off with the speed of a golf cart. Oh, and it's a functional boat. Forgot to mention that. Okay. Oddly enough, the movie doesn't really follow a plot at this point. I mean, it's there, but it's a fairly loose one, mostly following different events followed right after each other. Up to the point where it's just the babies getting lost in the woods and finding a lizard. Oh, you mean wizard! To take them back home. They come across some monkeys, a wolf, a poor Glenn Beck impersonation. You get the deal.
Standing there all naked? I mean, I'm sure he's just trying to help. And besides, it's hot fish exploring in the woods all day.
Oh, come on, Tommy. We all know with this episode you like going out in the nude. At the time this movie came out, it was when other studios other than Disney were able to paint their frames digitally. It was refreshing, especially when you give characters like the Rugrats more depth with shades and shadows. Added on the fact that most animated films based on television shows even today would make feature films that would feel more like extended episodes. In the Rugrats movie, events and characters made the movie feel large in scale, which is hard to believe when the show already does that to begin with. I'm always fascinated with how a show about babies can compare to something feeling larger than life. Now, it does have its problems that are shared with the show, which is its potty humor. However, when the show would allude to it, we have full out piss and vomit. There's also the fact that it was made with fans in mind. Like the moment when Spike fends off a wolf, it's probably meant more for fans than it did for people watching the film without any knowledge of the show. He really doesn't play a large role in this film, but for people who watched him in every episode, seeing him almost die was a pretty big deal. I would have probably given this movie an rating, especially if you're not familiar with the show, but even then, it does have some good 90s animation from the great Igor Kovalyov, even if he admitted to doing the movie only to finance his other projects. That and it does have other redeemable qualities, and characters who treat the day like an ongoing adventure. Rugrats was one of my favorite shows growing up, and even the movie holds up to a worth it rating. However, if I had my way, I would have gotten it on this orange VHS right here, but that's wishful thinking. I'm Joey.T.Cartoon.P and thanks for watching this episode of the Cartoon Palooza.
Sitting here thinking about it yesterday.